be seated. I just want to welcome everyone. We're going to have some military walkthrough as well as a final salute from EMS. My name is Lindsay, and on behalf of Ballard-Sunder Funeral Home, of course, Tim's family, I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. We know that as a community, it's important to come together when someone we love dies. And so you are all here today to do that, to be together, to support Tim's family. And I know they are eternally grateful to you guys. Together with Chaplain Greg Bodine, we are going to honor Tim today, as well as with the EMT Honor Guard from North Memorial and all of his friends from the military and from work as well. So I invite everyone as we begin our time together, just take a breath, clear your hearts, clear your minds, and be ready to honor Tim. With that, I'd like to introduce you to Chaplain Greg, who's going to lead us in our service today. Thank you, Chaplain.
We gather together this morning as family in His presence. Once again, we gather to grieve and to cry and to say our goodbye. We had an opportunity last week to gather at North Memorial Ambulance EMS and gather for a candlelight vigil. Now we gather again today. Tim's sudden death has shocked and stunned and shaken every one of us here today. We have been walking already a long and confusing journey. It's so important to not walk the road of grief alone. And so we gathered last week, we gather this morning. Take each other's hand and walk this road of grief together. To find hope, to find help in the midst of our hurt. Today we want to have our service filled with memories, filled with stories. Each one of us here in different relationships, Tim has touched our lives. Our memories of his smile and his smirk, our memories of his kind and compassionate heart. Our memories of his calm presence in the midst of crisis. And so today we want to give ourselves a gift of memory. And we gather not only to grieve and cry and say our goodbyes, but we also gather today to comfort one another, to console one another, to support one another in our grief. And it's my prayer that we would draw close to one another as family and friends. It's also my prayer this morning that we would sense God's presence, that we would sense God's comfort. The Bible reminds us that our God is a God of comfort, a God of consolation. Hear this word from 2 Corinthians chapter 1. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and the God of all consolation. He comforts us in all of our sorrows so that we can comfort others in their sorrows with the consolation we ourselves have received from God. Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. If anyone believes in me, even though he die, he will live. Jesus also said, come to me, all you who labor and are overburdened, who are weak and weary and worn, and I will give you rest. Our help and our hope this morning does come in the name of the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Let us pray. Lord Jesus, we gather this morning as family, as friends. And yes, we gather to grieve and cry and say our goodbyes. It's so hard to say goodbye. Tim has touched each one of our lives. Lord, as we gather to comfort one another, we pray that you would be present, that your Holy Spirit now would fill this chapel, that we would sense your comfort and your presence. Lord, help us today that we may see in death a gate to eternal life, that we may continue our course here on earth in confidence until by your call we are reunited with those who have gone before us through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. This time, Greg, I'd ask you to come forward and share on behalf of the family.
Morning. So I say good morning to all of our friends, family, first responders. Of course, we've got our Marines. My name is Greg. I'm just one of Tim's little brothers. On behalf of my mom and dad and the rest of our family, I want to thank you all for being here to help us celebrate Tim. On another note, thank you, Ballard, for doing this and helping us through this. It makes it worth it. Just looking around the room today and in the overflowed parking lot, it's apparent Tim's life was felt by all. Yesterday, a lot of us got to hear, shared memorable stories of how Tim impacted so many. He was absolutely a gift to all of us, and he left a very specific impression and memory on all of us as individuals. His character was consistent throughout his life for all to see and enjoy. The gifts that Tim gave us are embedded in our hearts forever. He often gave us laughter, some of the best memories one can have from another person in a lifetime. Seeing you all here is just another gift from Tim. I hope we can all find a new purpose in living more like he did, and to leave an impression on people like he did. Peace isn't just found in the absence of a storm. rather, in a storm, peace is found in the presence of God. Peace I leave you, my peace I give you. Do not give as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Do not be afraid. John 14:27. There is absolutely no doubt that we are all hurting today. But today, we need to remind ourselves that we won't be stuck in our pain forever, and that the valley we're in is not our final destination. There is no storm that God won't bring us out of, and no obstacle that He won't help us overcome. There's no enemy that God won't defeat, and there's no heartache that He can't heal. His words remind us that He is close to the brokenhearted, and He saves those that are crushed in spirit. He's closer than you may think or feel. And remember that He's always present, and especially in our time of pain. My mom and dad wanted me to share a couple things about Tim with you. First and foremost, how proud we were to watch Tim volunteer, enlist, and sacrifice to become a United States Marine. They knew his dedication to country was also what made him so dedicated to helping others. My mom specifically reminded me the other day of how her and Tim would regularly reflect on a story from when Tim was 5. She set the scene of a beautiful spring evening in May, and she was telling me that she had packed us all up in the car to go to baseball practice at 3 separate fields, and of course they were all scheduled at the same time at 7 p.m. When I say car, though, I don't really mean car. What I mean is a van. As you know, we have a large family. My mom and dad had purchased a large 11-passenger van known as the Beauville. It was the only way to transport a large amount of kids absent of hiring a school bus for every activity. As she was driving down the road, she told me that one of us yelled at her and said, "Tim's not in the car." My mom, of course, thought we were joking around or pulling her leg. But again, someone said, "Mom, Tim's not in the car." She did the old 1990s head count and realized that he was not, in fact, in the van. She rushed back home and turned around, and as she got home, there was Tim, sitting on the front steps, newly 5 years old, and in tears. The front door locked, which was odd because our front door was never locked. Most of you that know us know that that's true. She told me that Tim and her used to share that story together all the time, and I was having a good laugh. She also wanted me to share that the day before Tim's passing, my mom and him got to speak. And his last words were, "I love you." And Tim always made it a point to ensure that my mom knew that. As for me, growing up as a kid, a teenager, and well into adulthood, Tim and I had a lot of firsts together. When I got my license, and the first time I borrowed my mom's car, Tim was in fact with me. We decided to go to the local McDonald's, and we indulged in the dollar menu. And I think we even paid an all change. That's all we had. I may or may not have let him drive that day. You don't know freedom until you know that you're the best looking guys driving around in a red Pontiac Sunfire. Tim and I also, when we were a little bit younger, we got our first Hot Pocket burns together. You remember those things, they're either ice cold or they're scalding hot. We decided to pay the price on scalding hot. We had matching scabs and scars on the corners of our mouths. As younger teenagers, we dabbled in our first batch of the devil's lettuce together. It was from a nearby road approach at our new house in Carver, and it did nothing but give us a headache. It made us extremely sick. So I'm not all that confident that's what we thought we were doing. No matter what we did together, though, Tim always had a smile on his face, and he always had it back. When I left for the Army, I left my friend behind so he could navigate his life as he saw fit. In my opinion, he did an amazing job. Tim joined the Marines, I think just to spite me some days. I'd commonly get text messages from him saying, "What's up, Army rat?" And then he'd boast and brag about his 4% body fat. I sincerely miss all the jabs and the pokes because I knew from Tim it was from the heart. Tim, Timmy, we love you. We miss you. We undoubtedly know that you are truly in peace with a complete and full heart. You are clean, you are perfect, you are unharmed. Thank you for being a gift to all of us. Please join us in remembering Tim with this song.
This time we'd like to share some more memories, some more stories of Tim's life. Brother Steve was sharing in on behalf of the family, and then Sean, and then Chris to follow.
It's truly warming to see all of you here. What an honor today. My name is Steve. I'm Tim's younger brother. What did you know Tim as? Tim? Timothy? Or his friends called him Stewie? Maybe Tiny Tim? Or as I called him, Tibby. Yes, Tibby. T-I-B-B-Y. It's a little silly for me. It's just fun to create a nickname for my brother. But you don't just say Tibby normally. Sure, you say sometimes, "Yo, what's up, Tib?" or "Hey, Tib." But generally, I say it in a silly voice. And I would typically send this audio to Tim. I'll play it for you. So this is from an old text message. I would usually send that to him, and I think he'd enjoy it. When I would do this, he would typically sit there, smirk as Timmy would, and shake his head. And he probably thought, "Oh, this kid and his antics." But deep down, I think he enjoyed it. Addressing someone by their name is powerful. It conveys the desire to engage them. It's a way of honoring them. Speaking someone's name into the world is often associated with obedience. It can be seen as a sign of respect. That's how I viewed Tim. As a younger-older brother relationship, he molded me in many ways, much like the rest of my brothers here have molded me. How he molded me is found throughout my memories. These memories are what cause me grief and pain because I love and miss him so much, but also are what bring me so much joy in this last week. Think about your favorite memory of Tim. If you didn't know Tim well, and you're just supporting someone, first we appreciate that, or maybe think of a memory of a best friend. Visualize that memory. Hold it close to you. You got it? Good. I adored him as a young kid. Like most siblings, I always asked to wear his clothes to school because he was cool. The hip, skaters, sweatshirts, his shoes, he would meticulously clean with a toothbrush to extend their shelf life. I would ask to wear these clothes. He would sometimes say no, so I would take them anyways. Put them back where I found them afterwards, and he would proceed to notice every single time. But he usually wanted me to look cool too, so he would help my brother out. He was kind. When I was 18, Tim flew me out to Miramar Air Station, showing me what it was like to be a Marine for the weekend. Tim lived in the barracks on base. No idea how my mom allowed this. He picked me up from the airport in his Dodge Neon SRT4 and he took off, ripping through Highway 163 in San Diego. He loved that car. We got going and I was sitting in the passenger seat. He said, "Hey, flip that switch underneath your dashboard." flipped the metal switch, and he said, "Yeah, there's flames coming out of the exhaust now." I thought, wow, that's cool. I want to be a Marine like Tim. Tim took me under his wing. Fast forward to 2014, I was on my final military leave of absence before I left the service. I stayed with Tim in his apartment for a few days. We proceeded to have a few drinks and to watch Shark Tank. We set up a mock ice arena in his apartment and played knee hockey as a couple middle-aged 20-somethings. It was really fun. Tim loved hockey. It was also the last thing we talked about before he passed. I eventually had a little too much to drink, and I started rolling around on the floor, causing way too much noise. Tim said, "Dude, you need to stop. I'm not babysitting you tonight." I found his big red button, so I continued to push it. He got mad, sat on the couch, shook his head with his chin in his hand. Smirking, I eventually subsided. Tim was patient. Finally, 2 years ago, I injured my back exercising and I could not get up from the ground. I crawled to my phone and called Tim. He coached me through the process of trying to stand up, but eventually he helped me call 911. After I got out of the hospital, I sent a message to Tim, thanking him. And I said, "I'm glad you were around to help. Thanks, dude." He said, quote, "Man, don't ever feel bad about asking for help. We've all needed at one point eventually. There's zero shame today." That's who Tim was, a helper. Do you still have that memory I told you to hold close to you? Well, let me just read something to you quickly about grief and memories. I found it on the internet 5 years ago, and it can describe this moment better than I ever could. It's from an older gentleman by the moniker of G. Snow. I've tweaked it a bit. You will too. It will take a minute. Bear with me. I wish I could say you get used to people dying. I never did. I don't want to. It tears a hole through me whenever somebody I love dies, no matter the circumstances. But I don't want it to not matter. I don't want it to be something that just passes. My scars are a testament to the love and relationship that I had for and with that person. And if the scar is deep, so is the love. So be it. Scars are a testament to life. Scars are a testament that I can love deeply and live deeply and be cut or even gouged, and that I can heal and continue to live, and continue to love. And that scar tissue is stronger than the original flesh ever was. Scars are a testament to life. Scars are only ugly to people who can't see. As for grief, you'll find that it comes in waves. When the ship is first wrecked, you're drowning, with wreckage all around you. Everything floating around you reminds you of the beauty and the magnificence of the ship that was and is no more, and all you can do is float. You find some piece of the wreckage and you hang on for a while. Maybe it's a physical thing. Maybe it's a happy memory or a photograph. Maybe it's a person who is also floating. For a while, all you can do is float. Stay alive. In the beginning, the waves are 100 feet tall and crash over you without mercy. They come 10 seconds apart and don't even give you time to catch your breath. All you can do is hang on and float. And after a while, maybe weeks or months, you'll find that the waves are still 100 feet tall, but they come further apart. And when they come, they'll still crash all over you and wipe you out. But in between, you can breathe. You can function. You never know what's going to trigger the grief. It can be just about anything, and the waves come crashing. But in between the waves, there is life. Somewhere down the line, and it's different for everybody, you find that the waves are only 80 feet tall, or 50, and they still come. They come further apart. You can see them coming, an anniversary, a hockey game, an episode of Shark Tank, or landing at San Diego International. You can see it coming for the most part, and you prepare yourself. And when a crash washes over you, you know that somehow you will again come out of the other side, soaking wet, sputtering, still hanging on to some tiny piece of the wreckage, but you'll come out. The waves never stop coming. And somehow you don't really want them to. But you learn that you will survive them. And the waves will come. And you'll survive them too. And if you're lucky, you'll have lots of scars from lots of loves. And lots of regrets. What was Tim to you? For me, a role model, a friend. What was your memory you held close at the beginning? How do those memories shape you? That's your wreckage you belong to. We loved him. We'll forever cherish these memories. We'll forever honor his duty to others, and the whole will never be replaced. But the scars will show, the beautiful and deep scars. The waves of grief will come, and in between the waves, there will be life. We will always remember Tim.
Morning, everybody. First, I would like to share my deepest condolences with the entire Stewart family. I'm really sorry for your loss. My name is Sean. One of Tim's best friends growing up. I always imagined I would be up here giving Tim's best man speech before his eulogy. But here we are today, gathered to celebrate the amazing Tim in a way that I still cannot fathom. I personally know many of you in this room. Many of you know me. Some of us have never met, but what we all have in common is Tim. Some of you knew him by his many nicknames: Stu, Tom Tom, Stewart, or some of us called him Tim. No matter what you called him, he was always the same, kind-hearted, loyal, honest, well-rounded, loving Tim I grew to know so well. Tim always had such a big smile on his face. He was always so positive, so honest. Tim was the definition of a best friend, a brother, a soldier, a son, and overall, a one-of-a-kind person we will never forget. Stu, as I would call him, Stu and I had an over 20-year friendship. Stu and I met back in middle school. We became very close friends really quickly. Something just clicked between us. I could never pinpoint what it was, but our bond was like no other I've ever had. We hung out all the time throughout high school and middle school. If you saw Tim, you expected to see me. If you saw me, you expected to see Stu. He was always there. We had so many friends growing up, mainly because Stu was so easy to love. We spent some of the best childhood years together. I know a lot of us in this room shared some of those great memories as well. Some things I'll never forget, some things I'll never remember, some things Stu and I never told a soul, and I will take to my grave. Stu and I were inseparable for years. I'll never forget when he came with me to get my first tattoo when I was 16 with my mom. I'll never forget the family holidays, special occasions, parties that Tim and I joined. He joined my family for over the years. We became brothers. We had our own apartment together for years. We shared jobs, we shared laughter, we shared love, lost together, countless memories over the years. Stu was my best friend. He was a brother, and I'm forever grateful for all the time we had growing up together. After Stu joined the Marines, it became harder and harder to keep in touch, but we always maintained our friendship still to this day. Stu was one of the first visitors we had when we moved to Florida 13 years ago. Every trip going back to Minnesota over the 13 years, Stu and I always managed to get together, no matter what, no excuses. Even if it was brief. In late July, I asked Stu to join us for my son's first Major League Baseball game at Target Field. Of course, Stu joined us. Parker sat right next to Stu the whole game. They hit it off just as I knew they would. Just like when Stu and I first met. We all had so much fun at the game together with Daddy's best friends, too. That was the last time I was blessed to see Stu, and it will be a day my son and I will never forget. I miss you so much, Stu. I'll never forget you and what you meant to me. Love you, Stu. Till we meet again.
My name is Chris. I am part of the Marine Corps presence here today. And on behalf of the Marine Corps, I extend my deepest and most solemn condolences to the family, to the friends, to the first responders, and for all that have come here and traveled so far to unite under the banner of Timothy Stewart. I first met Stewart on the Yellow Footprints. We were forged as Marines alongside each other in the same platoon at boot camp. We then followed on and did Marine Corps combat training. And then off to A school, where we were taught how to be a 6112 CH-46 mechanic. Stewart was an excellent mechanic. He was calculated, he was strong, he knew his machine. This has shocked us. This has shaken us. But we still stand under that flag of Semper Fidelis, meaning always faithful. The Marine Corps teaches us not to fail. The Marine Corps teaches us to make mission. But what the Marine Corps does not teach us is how to get out and how to transition and how to not live under that absolute black and white ethos. Not everything is black and white. We do live in gray zones. There is grace for gray zones. Everything's not right or wrong. Some things simply are what is. Right or wrong means that there's a winner and a loser. It's very battlefield oriented. If we can identify what is, whether that be grief, whether that be struggle, whether that be strife, with that insight, we are able to affect change in our world, even if that means asking for help. To the first responders, to the Marines, to everybody here, I invite you to identify your what is and what you're going to do with your specific thread of grief that we all share here today. Family, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've never met you guys until today, but I feel deeply connected with you guys. I pray blessings over all of you guys. Everybody that Tim has touched, I pray blessings over. Thank you, and Semper Fi.
The second song that Tim's family has selected for us today is a beautiful song. It's a chance to think and reflect on our own memories of Tim as well. It's called Sitting on Our Knees. Our final two speakers today who share memories and stories of Anna's colleague and boss, team member from North, and then his brother Jeff, who both of us portion of our service. Nancy?
Yeah, there's some Kleenex over here. Hello. I have the honor of sharing with you some memories of Tim's time at North Memorial Health, which started in 2015. Tim worked his way up in our ambulance division of the Metro. He worked wheelchair vans and then our basic life support or BLS trucks. As an emergency medical technician, I'm trying not to use acronyms because I get confused with the acronyms. He transitioned to a paramedic and worked in our ALS or advanced life support trucks as well. Most recently, he transitioned to the emergency management team, which covers all aspects of the North Memorial Health System in Minnesota, Wisconsin. Not a lot of people realize we hit so many different areas and impact so many. My name's Lance Ross, as Greg said. I'm with the emergency management team, and I'm a crier. And I've cried a lot this week, and I might cry through this, so just bear with me. I tear up when I hear about some of the amazing things that occur with my colleagues that are here today, whether it's within the ambulance, a helicopter, at our hospitals or clinics, all those first responders that are here as well. So many amazing people making a difference and impacting so many lives. Thank you. I cried a lot this week. I'm grieving, just like you are. I've also been reflecting these past few days, like many of you are. What an awesome amount of hearts. My 5-year-old son does this a lot. I don't know if I did that right. Cares, on Facebook or whatever it is. Stories, memories, laughter. Heard a lot of great things have been shared this week by so many. Let me share a few of these stories from his North family. I've been able to chat with a few of you, talk with a few of you, and you've shared with me. And thank you for that. As you know, Tim served in the United States Marine Corps. If I say this wrong, guys, I apologize. But I did my research. I Wikipedia. He was a flight mechanic with Marine Medium, and Steve helped me, Marine Medium Helicopter Squadron 163, that's correct, known as the Ridge Runners, or Eagle Eyes. They had many different mission types that they flew. One of the mission types that they flew was medevac missions, is that correct? We have some medics in the back of the helicopter occasionally. It was watching some of these medical providers, Tim told me, that inspired him to pursue emergency medicine. We just talked about this a few weeks ago. Many of his military brothers are here today and came from a very long ways. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being here, and thank you for answering that call. I don't know if that's you guys all there. I believe I've got a majority of you here. So. I think the picture shared for the obituary speaks volumes. I also learned that Tim has a lot of nicknames. I have my own here, but I've learned quite a few just with the past stories. I had a young Tim. I think that was his real name, right, Tim? Timmy, we got that one. There was a Tippy. I didn't have that one. Stewie, I had that one. The one I got that you don't have was Uncle Ish. Almost an uncle, but not quite, right? So, and then Tiny Tim. That's one. I've got a good story about Tiny Tim. That picture, so proud of his paramedic school uniform. He was standing in his uniform, so excited, so proud, displaying his paramedic license that he worked so hard to achieve with many of you. The twinkle in his eyes, that famous Tim smile, smirk that we hear about. We'll come back to that smirk. Tiny Tim, he made a huge impact with so many throughout the North organization. That has become evident this past week. Even yesterday, David and I were going through our business, about our business in Robbinsdale, and people would stop and have a story about Tim. or just say, oh, we love Tim. Didn't matter who it was. Our chief medical officer came down, nurses from the ED, Eric from the warehouse that supplies the floors, David, who picks up our garbage, came through and extended his condolences. Tim knew a lot of people, and the one thing that many of them talked about was his smile, or that smirk, which is, I'm not sure. So, how did the name Tiny Tim come about? Lindsay and Tim were partners on the rigs. There was an elderly lady in the back with Lindsay. It was Lindsay's call, so you were in the back. The lady asked what Lindsay's name was. Lindsay said, Lindsay, which was appropriate. Well, I'm going to call you Queen Lindsay. And so she said, Lindsay's like, well, okay, we'll roll with that. About that time, Tim poked his head in the side door, and the lady asked Tim's name. And he said, I'm Tim. Well, I'm going to call you Tiny Tim. So the name stuck, and the picture that you see with his hands with the star down on First Avenue, that was a couple weeks ago with some special friends. Were you going on a ghost tour or something like that? Yeah, so I love that picture. One night, Tim and Lindsay were working again, and it was a nice night out, windows down, driving through the service area, music playing, because Tim loved music. There was a gentleman Tim saw crossing the road and made some eye contact. Tim waved. Apparently not good enough, because the gentleman yelled, hey, if you're gonna make a wave, make it count. Make it a good one. Obviously a fond memory that Lindsay capitalized on and teased him about. And they did tease each other. Tim would share when he got her with a good one. He would come back from the weekends and say, oh, I got Lindsay good this time this week. And he'd share. Going back to that wave, it's so true though. If we're going to make a wave, a smile, or shake someone's hand, let's make it count. Let's make an impact. Tim loved music. Some actually say he was a pretty good singer. Others are still on the fence about that. You could hear Tim humming along to whatever was playing. It didn't matter what it was. Music trivia he played, name that tune, or an artist. He did get confused with Kansas and Chicago. Not the locations, the artist. A little Lincoln Park here and there. Tim and I shared an office for quite some time. We rotated between Cool 108 and Radio Margaritaville. I was the Radio Margaritaville. Secretly, I think I made another pair of head out of him. However, he could still belt out Jesse's girl with confidence. Tim came to the emergency management team with David and I as a light-duty medic. I knew of Tim from being around the Metro base, always kind and respectful, a great guy. So we said, sure, we'll have him come work with us. We gave him a project, it took him 2 weeks. I thought it was going to take a month. And it was great work. So as time went, there were some more projects, clinic visits, base visits. He was doing an awesome job. And Tim and David were becoming quite the team. I was able to open a position on the team. Tim was interested. That was awesome. Really excited. We had a discussion about the job, answered some questions for him, and told him to think about it. It's a big decision. We work in the streets, taking care of so many people, and then coming and working with us when we don't really even know what we do half the time. So. Let's see. At the end of our chat, I told Tim, I can't and I won't give you this job. You need to earn it. Tim's answer, of course, none of us would not believe this. I want to earn it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I was very happy when he was one of the first to apply. I found out this week, talking with Steve, that he was pretty excited about it when Steve helped him with his resume. We had 20 plus apply in 1 week, closed the posting, lots of qualified candidates. Tim was one of them. I need to tell you, we do have some specific criteria in the emergency management team. One of them is socks. You have to wear fun socks. So the brothers, and you got chairs, don't you, buddy? We gave them to the nephews and brother-in-law. You all got your fun socks. So you're honorary members of the emergency management team. Apparently Tim had a history of fun socks before coming to this team though, and there were some toilet paper socks. And I remember those socks, and I think Lindsay, did we have to finally get rid of too many holes in them maybe or something like that? He loved those socks, and that came from one of the sisters, or one of Lindsay's sisters. This spring, our offices moved into the air care space. Tim finally had a real desk. Before he was using a table in my office. He had finally real monitors instead of his little side ones that you can buy for your computer. He had his own phone. He researched and found some accessories for his desk. He made it his own. He had a cool place for his cell phone. He had his cool 108 monitor so he could stream cool 108. It was fun seeing him set up his big boy desk, and he took pride in it, like everything else he did. Tim also, we just found out this week, and we're a little disturbed by this, aren't we, David? Tim had a snack drawer. He never shared that with us. There's some good snacks in there, yeah, I'm just saying. Apparently, Tim was known for his snacks with his partners as well. Sharing with them in the rigs. Not in the office, I'm going to just say that again, but Dave and I are going to get over that. I have a strict rule about work-life balance on my teams. I say work's always going to be there. Go home, be with your families. So that's why I always call them on the way to work and on the way home from work, so I get bored driving to Hudson. Really good work-life balance when your boss calls you at the office. But they always answered. I tried calling Tim on Monday after, and I was waiting to hear that, hello! I didn't hear from Tim, what's up, boss? And he didn't answer. I got mad, and I got sad. But then I started thinking of some fun memories too. That's a roller coaster, every single one of us. And it's going to continue. But we're going to get through this. All right, back to Tim in the interview. We narrowed it down to 5 candidates. I'll never forget Tim's first answer in the first 5 minutes in the interview. Quite honestly, I probably stopped listening after that because I don't even remember what the question was, but I remember the answer. Tim's words. On the rig, we are called to help those that need us at their worst time or bad day. We need to gain a report quickly to gain the trust in order to calm the patient down and start doing what we can to make their day better. Tim's words. I see emergency management being somewhat the same. It's about making people's bad days better by gaining that rapport and trust. It's about building relationships. It's so true. Boy, he did a good job with that, didn't he? Look at this room. It's obvious that, I just said that, so we're going to move on. All right. I also said Tim did a pretty good job of building relationships, rapport, and trust. Trust and building relationships. I heard a lot about the rig or the box. Is that a thing? We call it the box? I see some nods, all right. So that's the back of the truck, apparently, this past week. As you can imagine, working in a rig, 10, 12, 14-hour shifts, it can come down to, it all comes down to your partner, who your partner is, and for so many reasons how that shift will go. Tim was a partner that many wanted to work with, sought after to work with as well. People would text him of what they bid, so when they're bid, they bid for shifts, and they would text, hey, we're doing this bid or whatever, and trying to get Tim to get on with it. They said he was fun. They'd also text him if there was an open shift. They said he was fun, competent, and no matter what occurred, it would be a good shift with him. Honor to work with him are some of the words. He was fun. He was the top 10% guy. These are words from his partners, his friends. Tim loved to learn and figure things out as well, tinker. He also had a gift to teach and make others understand, and make things easier to understand. I was always impressed by how much he would research, whether it was policies or something, how something worked. He was involved in a lot of different things. When he was working on projects, he was very thorough. He did the work. One of the things that he completed in less than a year was his emergency management certification, which that's pretty huge in less than a year. He worked hard on that, and we gave that to Luann yesterday. He hadn't received a certificate yet. That would have happened in February or January. And David reached out to Homeland Security, and the Director of Homeland Security, who's a friend of mine, called me and said, we have a certificate, his pin, a letter for the pin. So that's pretty cool. Glad we were able to get that too. So let's get back to the smirk. That famous smirk. He was always so coy. He was known for his quiet remarks, just loud enough so you could hear. And then he would wait for your reaction by looking at you with that smirk kind of out of the corner of his eye. Then he'd laugh and walk away when you comprehended what he said. It was always a goal in our office to get that belly laugh. You could get a chuckle, but the belly laugh, we knew we were doing something. Trust, relationships, making an impact. It's pretty awesome looking out here today in this room. Last night, during the gathering, at the vigil a week ago, seeing so many called to serve, help others, make a difference that are in this room. So many talented, highly trained, skilled people. Our military personnel, public safety, law enforcement, EMS, fire friends, techs, nurses, doctors, all answering that call, protecting us, helping those in need at their worst. With all that training, the resources available now from when I first started years ago, is impressive. The equipment in the back of the box at the hospital, the protocols, there are lives that are being saved each day because of the work. That you all do. You see some complex, you see some complex patients and you might not be entirely sure what to do. So you reach out. You use another resource available. You call the medical controller, the medical director to have them help you. You make that call. In the back of the box, people have literally been brought back to life with those resources that are available. All this training, all these resources, these tools to do your job, to answer the call, to help others, to protect others, to make a difference. I need you to know that they're available to you as well. It's easier said than done. We keep it inside. We move on to the next call. We go home, but we don't forget. I'm fine. So isn't that Minnesota thing? I'm fine. People want to help you. People want to answer your call. People want to make a difference for you. We don't know what Tim was thinking. We don't know where he was at. Only Tim knows. Tim knows that, right? We can't speculate. Only Tim knows. What I do know is he made quite an impact in his 36 years. So many loved him, trusted him, and he loved you. Tim answered the call for so many in so many ways. By being that good friend, that mentor standing with us to get us through an exam to help understand something better, serving to protect us and our freedoms, saving lives in the box. If Tim knew you were struggling, he'd want you to make that call. Use the resources. Live another day. It starts with each one of us, to make sure we are at our best self, that we can be there for those that love us, and for ourselves. I made the call this week to Greg, his mother, and I will again soon. We'll talk. I'm going to grieve. We're going to get through this, but I'm going to make sure it gels. Thank you, Tim. I miss you, buddy.
Good afternoon. For those of you who aren't aware, my name is Jeff. I'm one of Tim's older brothers. I'm going to do my best to share a few things about my brother Tim. I'm trying to keep it short to the point. My wife has jokingly said to me in the past that I can get often long-winded at times. I just don't want that to happen here today. I have so many things that I can share about Tim and the way that he lived his life. Unfortunately, time is a little limited. We all have stories that we can share, and I hope we will. That's how we will let Tim live on. When I was initially asked to speak, I had mixed feelings and emotions. I still have not fully processed the realities of what's taking place in my little brother. It's been just incredibly tough. One of my little brothers and best friend is no longer with us. I tried my best to put all the thoughts and memories down on paper in hopes that I could come back and make sense of it before this day, or when the time was right, or come up with some sort of fancy speech, but I don't think we will ever be the right time or the correct words for such a tragedy that we're all experiencing. Going through the loss of a loved one in this type of manner, especially a brother, it's just different, and it's so painful. So last week, as I started searching for the proper words, I kept telling myself, there are no words for this. How are you going to do this? Thankfully, amid my own personal confusion and sadness, my cousin Sarah happened to randomly share something with me in text. And I thought it would be fitting to share with everyone here today. It reads as follows. Instead of saying, I know what it feels like, let's say, I cannot imagine your heartbreak. Instead of saying you're strong, you'll get through this, let's say, you'll hurt and I'll be there for you. Instead of saying, you look like you're doing well, let's say, how are you holding up today? Instead of saying healing takes time, let's say healing has no time. Instead of saying everything happens for a reason, let's say this must feel so terribly senseless right now. And when there are no words to say at all, you don't need to try and find any. Love speaks in silence too. From the moment we learned that Tim was gone, all I could do was think of how can I honor my little brother in the life that he lived. It was an incredible one. For me, that comes in the form of sharing a little bit of who he was to me and what he was meant to me in my life. My mind goes back to the time when he graduated high school. Shortly after he enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, then he left for boot camp, came home 3 months later, no longer a boy, but a man who proudly carried the title of the United States Marine, and a man that I now look up to. He was no longer my little brother. He earned it. At boot camp, I had the privilege with my mom, I don't know if she remembers, but my mom and I got to go down to San Diego and watch my brother's ceremony, graduation. One thing that sticks out to me is as my mom and I sat there before some of the ceremonies, we got to witness the Marines last, I believe, is a 3-mile run. And they're coming around this loop in a bowl. I remember peeking around looking for for my brother Tim. I saw him, and I know he saw us, but just something had changed about him. He stayed so focused in. He was a different man, and it was just really cool to be a part of that and see that. After Tim came home from 5 honorable years of service as one of his older brothers, it became pretty apparent to me that the content of his character was true and unwavering, different than when he was a younger boy. I was so proud of him. Tim was dedicated, Tim was selfless, Tim was a man of integrity. He always stood for what he believed in. Tim was slow to anger, and I personally always felt that Tim had his heart in the right place. This brings me to just a little story I wanted to share about one of my many stories of Tim. But as I read the last thing, there are obviously so many other words that could describe him. But the one that stood out to me in the story that popped in my head was slow to anger. Looking for a couple of my friends that were there on this one. So Tim loved fishing. I'm sure you're all aware of that. He thought he was a better fisherman than me, but no way. No, sorry, I'm the fisherman of the family. Let's just get that straight. Tim wanted to get more involved once his service was up, and I always like to include my little brothers in everything that I've done. I've been blessed with the most amazing friends in the world. These guys I've known for 35 years plus, and I wanted my brothers to always be a part of that. Whenever possible. You guys know that whether it's fishing, hunting, going to functions, friends, on trips, on the lake, I always wanted my brothers to be there. Again, it was no exception for Tim. I knew some of my friends and I were going on an ice fishing trip in the dead of winter. I believe it was January, February, and the temperatures were freezing cold, like 20 below. We didn't have a fancy ice house at this time. We had it's like a big pop-up tent essentially, so we were kind of rough with it. But we invited Tim. He said, yeah, absolutely, I'm going to come with you guys. I would love to do this, because he hadn't really had the ice fishing experience yet. Well, I kind of crapped the bed and forgot to give him a list of everything that he needed. On our way up to Red Lake, again, it's just blistering cold out there. We pull onto the lake, and we're all layering up with our clothes. And without realizing it, we don't know what Tim has packed. Tim gets out of the vehicle, and this clown is wearing, we were like, what are you doing? Are you fixing helicopters? We ice fishing. He's got this onesie jumpsuit on, this tucked into his military boots. We're like, oh my gosh, my friends are asking me, what are we doing here? Well, later that night, what ended up happening is 3 of us had cots. Tim didn't. He had a sleeping bag, and we had these rubber mats over the ice, just to keep things more comfortable in there. Well, Tim slept in his sleeping bag with his onesie, like he just came out of the hangar, and a couple of hours had passed. We had probably passed out after a few adult beverages, but Tim was on the ground, and also I think a couple of us must have heard him, but we looked down, and Tim laying essentially on the ice. He's sleeping in about 3 inches of water, freezing his you-know-what out. And one of our friends had this massive cot in there, and the other 2 guys had these smaller cots, and we woke Tim up and got him dried off, and it was just amazing because Tim never complained. He had every right, every reason to be mad at us, but he just made the best of every single situation. So that was one of the stories that popped in my head that I wanted to share with you. Share this mission. You've probably all heard the cliche of the world being a lesser place when a loved one is lost. I truly believe that this time that holds true. The impact Tim had on his family and friends, his community, and the men and women that he so proudly served with was enormous. We're just now learning the extent of the impact that Tim really had on everybody. There's an undeniable void that's been left. How can we ever fill this void? I don't know if it's ever going to be filled for me. My heart's torn in half. I miss my brother so much. I would like to think that there's a way we can put a few of these missing pieces back together, that it will take all of us, every single one of us. Whether you are here in support of someone that knew Tim or one of his closest friends, it really doesn't make any difference. If you didn't know him, ask us questions. We will gladly share. We want to honor him in his memory. It will be easy to find out how Tim lived his life just by talking with others. If we can each take one good quality from Tim and how he lived his life and apply it to our own lives, we can help fill that void and honor his name for the way he deserves. Now, I don't have this this last part written down, but I've got one more quick story, something that was unique to Tim and I. Again, this was shortly after the time of his service when he got out of the Marine Corps. I know exactly where I was. We were in a setting where I walked up behind him and kind of as Steve and the other guys, we all had nicknames for him. I said, "Hey, Tilla," I poked him and I said, "Hoorah, Marine." And he turned and he looked at me with just this look in his face, and he made me understand really quick that that's not what we said. Part of my words, but this is what he said. He said, "We don't say hoorah or whoop or what those other guys do." He said, "That's for the other pussies that didn't join the Marine Corps." He then went on to tell me, he said, "We said hoorah." He just was speaking to me with conviction. He said, if I remember correctly, he explained it as a form of a battle cry that started out a long time ago. He said, when Marines say it, it comes from this place deep down. So I listened to him and I knew he was serious, but every time moving forward or so often we'd be in a private setting or with friends, I'd go up to him and give him that little nudge in the side, and we've heard about the smirk and smile, but that's one thing Tim would always do. I'd go up and just say some stupid words like, "Hooray today," or something. I'm not saying hoorah, I'm just making fun of the whole thing because I knew it always put that smirk or smile on his face. Always. So yeah, I wanted to end this in just kind of a fun way, something that I know we could all together put a smile on Tim's face one last time. And if you would all be willing to do this with me, I know Tim will be proud and he'll be looking on all of us with the biggest smile, a smile that I know I really miss. But I want to count to 3, and I'm going to need the help of his military boys, the Marines back there. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to give the biggest hoorah, and I want everybody at the same time to give that hoorah on behalf of our brother Tim. Can we do that? Yeah. I don't know if there's people outside, but I want everybody to hear it and feel it. You ready? 1, 2, 3.
What a great way to end things here. I just want to say thank you to all of Tim's brothers who shared. We know that some of them are related by blood. Some of them are related to him just through life. And he was a true friend to every person here. So we're going to continue honoring him. In just a moment, we're going to have our final song play, and during that time, I encourage you all to think of those special memories. Just keep Tim in your heart and in your minds as we listen to it. As soon as the song starts, I'm going to invite all of our EMS folks and our military, Marine folks to head outside to help us form that corridor that all of Tim's family and friends will be walking through in just a moment. At the conclusion of our recorded song, we're going to have our bagpiper come in to help lead us outside. Outside, we're going to have some more prayers and reflections from Chaplain Greg, as well as a final call in honor of Tim. So at this time, we're going to listen to that special song, and again, our service professionals are invited to head outside and start forming that corridor at this time. Family and friends, I want you all to remain right inside here. Thank you.
that song are very powerful. It says, "Amazing grace, how sweet the sound to save the wretch like me. I once was lost, now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. The many dangers, toils, and snares I have already come. His grace has brought me safe thus far. Grace will lead me home. Yes, when this flesh and heart shall fail, when mortal life shall cease, I shall possess within the veil a life of joy. We've talked and shared many times this last week and a half about the importance of walking the road of faith together, of taking each other's hands as family and as friends. And I want to share with you the fact that God wants to take your hand as well and walk with you through this journey of grief. Isaiah 41 says this, "I am the Lord your God who holds your right hand." Who holds your right hand. And I tell you, do not be afraid. I will help you. As Nan said, we have help in one another, as friends and family. And I pray you sense God's help as well as you walk this road with one another. There's a beautiful hymn entitled, "Precious Lord, Take My Hand," that reflects on this verse. It says, "Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I'm tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. When my way grows drear, precious Lord, take my hand. My life is almost gone. Hear my cry, hear my call. Hold my hand, lest I fall. Darkness appears and the night draws near. The day is past and gone. At the river I stand, guide my feet. Hear my cry, hear my wonderful tradition within the EMS community. An honor to share with one another. It's entitled The Last Call. And this will be Tim's last call.
From Northcom. "1173 from Northcom. "1173 from Northcom. No response. All units be advised. North Memorial Health EMS acknowledges that Emergency Management Specialist and Paramedic Timothy Stewart, 1173, answered his last call for duty on September 7, 2024. Tim dedicated his life to serving others through his military service in the U.S. Marine Corps and in his career at North Memorial Health. Your kind heart and understanding to care for others will be greatly missed. Thank you for your 9 years of service. We know that you will be watching over all of us from afar and honor you as we deliver compassionate care to those in need. Rest easy, brother. We've got it from here. We will hold you in our hearts and minds and know that you are watching over us. We got it from here.
We wanted to end our service today by sharing a beautiful passage of Scripture. This is Luann's mom's favorite passage of Scripture. And Tim, growing up, and his brothers often heard this from Mom. And it's a beautiful passage, and we want to end our time together from Philippians 4, and it talks about not being anxious, and it talks about the peace of God that can guard our hearts, emotions, our feelings as we go through here, but also guard our minds, our thoughts as we read here. From Philippians 4:6, Savanna, your favorite verse. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and will guard your mind. Christ Jesus our Lord. Amen.
I want to thank everyone so much for being here. That's going to conclude our formal service honoring Tim today. But everyone is invited back into the building, upstairs, to continue the fellowship, continue telling stories, giving hugs, and supporting one another. We have some special desserts, some lemonade, coffee, and again, Tim's family hopes that you can all stay and be here to continue that fellowship, like we said. A special thank you to Chaplain Greg, to the EMS Honor Guard, to the Marines who are here, and to all of the EMS staff who have come out to honor your brother. Thank you all so much for being here.
Ends our service. Let us go in peace.
Detail dismissed.
For anybody that is going to be staying for the luncheon, I'll invite you to head back in this way and head right upstairs.